Session. We'll start with public comments. Do we have any today?
Yes, we have 2 registered. Tiffany Evans will start us off.
Good. Come on up, Tiffany.
Good afternoon. Today I'm here on behalf of the Ottawa Chautauqua Festival Committee, part of the Chamber of Commerce, the committee of the Chamber of Commerce, to give you an update, an unfortunate update about our city fireworks display this year. I was here several weeks ago talking and asking for additional funding for next year's display and telling you that we had a great display planned for this year. We learned early January, which is normally when we order our fireworks, that there was a chance that there would be delays in fireworks actually making it to the United States this year. By the beginning of March, we were told that there were 2 containers coming. One of them would port in the US at the end of May, with the fireworks making their way to our distributor at the middle of June in order for us to pick them up for our 4th of July display. And then another one would come in the middle till late July. Well, late last Friday morning, I woke up to an email that stated that that first container that contained most of our display is not going to be here in time for the 4th. We are expecting that container to be here the mid to late July. So it's disappointing for all of us that we will not have a display of fireworks for our Independence Day celebration, but the committee is still dedicated to shooting off this show. What we're able to do is, since both containers will be arriving in late July, we can revamp our order and get back to the show that everybody knows and loves and expects out of us, as opposed to the show that we were putting on that included more cakes than we would normally do and not as many as the 5-6 inch shells. And so we'll have a bigger display, but we've moved our display back until Labor Day weekend, and we will shoot it off on Sunday night of Labor Day weekend on September the 4th. So there will still be a show coming. I anticipate that other communities and organizations that host fireworks displays are going to be running into the same issue that we are, but we are very committed to making sure the city still gets to see their fireworks display. We've had a ton of businesses and individuals who have helped fundraise for this show, as well as the Ottawa City Commission, the Franklin County Commission, and that show will still go on. It will just be a couple of months later. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
It is a yuck, yeah. But as with, supply chain issues have affected every other industry, and so it's no surprise that it affects us as well.
We certainly appreciate you guys being able to adapt, move. I was glad to hear that you were still going to put it on, and it's a few months later, but it's still, it could be an enjoyable night, and quite frankly, a little cooler out.
Absolutely,
in September,
that's
so
what we're all thinking, because it is a hot day. And again, we had 2 options, or a couple of options. We could shoot off what we have in stock, which wasn't a lot and really would be an embarrassment upon the committee. We could cancel altogether, or we could postpone it to another holiday, and we think this is the best decision. So
I agree.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa, do we have a second public comment?
We do. Levi Cox is here.
Come on up. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm here to represent Vibe Broadband. I'm the tech ops supervisor for basically this region, this town. I have about 5 other ones.
You can sit down if you'd like.
Go ahead. I guess we've had a lot of comments about what's been going on with the outages. We just kind of want to come in and kind of explain ourselves, a few different things that's happened. Some big ones we've had, been pointing out some faults we've got with some city power things. It's pointed out some generator faults. Plus the upgrade. We've had a really bad time with our labor shortages. So this has extended our timelines. I'm being told that at the end of June, this upgrade should be done and all these headaches should be out of our hair. So with that, I know some of you guys are probably getting a lot of calls from customers that are having repeat calls saying their internet's always down multiple days in a row. Again, that's back to the labor shortage. Instead of doing, 3 or 4 guys out in the field, or 3 or 4 crews of 3 or 4 guys, we're down to 1. We've got 1 crew of 4 guys that are handling the whole city. So again, that's why it's extended, 2 months down the road. Outside of that, we had a couple of the big networks, the big circuit that comes into town. We had some pretty major failures. We had a circuit link that went down in Oklahoma City that took a little bit of time to find. It takes a very, very strong team of engineers to sort that out. We actually are going into a triple redundancy thing now. So that's pointed out such a big problem that we're actually putting more money in to go triple redundant with our big main circuit that comes into town here. That should be completed by Friday. So outside of that, the generator, the circuit link, and then the upgrade being done by June, I think here comes July, and we're going to be smooth sailing from there on out. So you guys have any questions about anything else?
With the labor short, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Say, so no fireworks for the 4th of July by the customer.
Yeah, yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
So,
With the labor shortage, has Vibe looked into subcontracting, or is that out?
That is a subcontractor.
It is a
We are pulling
subcontractor.
subcontractors. I believe they're from Illinois.
Okay.
And these guys have been pulling and moving guys left and right anywhere we can get them. It's almost like a warm body sort of thing at this point. We've had some, you kind of get a little bit of a shakedown when it comes to guys who know what they're doing versus guys that do it fast and sloppy. We're not the fast and sloppy type. We don't want to go back 3 months later and say, all this upgrade is a waste of money. So we kind of push more towards quality and let's slow it down and take it a little bit longer, which unfortunately hurts the customer because they're getting more extended outages. But at the end, it's going to make a better product at the end of the day.
Sure, and I appreciate that. I mean, we certainly don't want to come back to this, revisit this 6, 7, 8 months down the road, just because, like you said, somebody installed it, sloppily. We'd rather, we agree with you, we'd rather get it done once and get it done right.
Yeah,
So,
and that's kind of our philosophy too. With the things that's kind of been pointed out too, with the extra money we're spending now with their triple redundancy, we would have never thought about that if some of these small things hadn't popped up. The generator issue that we have, we would have never, worried about it until it was a problem. And now we know it's here. We've already put the money into play. Like I said, Thursday, we're doing some slam testing on it to make sure it holds next time. Just little stuff like that we didn't know, obviously, until it breaks, right?
Right.
So,
Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you for coming in with the update. That way we can pass it out, that information out when
yeah,
when
and
it
you
has.
guys, I don't know if you guys have my direct number or not. I know you guys probably have Travis. If you guys ever need anything, give us a call and we'll be sure to fly right to it. So,
Will do. Appreciate it.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Melissa, any other public comments? Not even any comments from her. So we'll move on to items to be placed on the regular city commission agenda, which is the proclamation recognizing June 19, 2022 as Juneteenth. Commissioners, did you have an opportunity to read that? And if so, is everybody okay with putting that onto our regular meeting? Great, thank you. That moves on to our items for presentation and discussion. The continued review of the 2023 operating budget. We'll start off with community service funds, the emergency communications 911 budget. Come on up. Good afternoon.
Hi. How are you, Commissioner?
Good, how are you?
Good. So I sent Melanie Landis a copy of the budget and just a short little overview of the budget. If you'll recall, when we were in before you guys last year, we decided to hold the budget flat, absolutely flat for last year because, staffing concerns and everything, we just weren't really sure how everything was going to shake out. We're still waiting to see our audited numbers for this year. We probably won't have those back until at least next week. So our audit is complete. They just haven't got us all the audited numbers yet. But for this year, we kept the majority of the budget flat, contractual services, commodities, and capital outlay. We kept those all completely flat, moved things around just a little bit to where Sarah, if you haven't met Sarah, this is Sarah Puffley. She's the Director of Emergency Communications now. Just where she thought that some minor adjustments needed to be made. But as you guys know, staffing is always the major question mark there. Our two biggest items on there, salaries and health insurance. So our salaries line item, as you know, the governmental sector has, concerns about staying relevant in the market and paying our employees what they could get somewhere else. So we've done an extensive survey of all our neighboring counties, some of our the neighboring cities who have similar positions to ours. And specifically in this budget, we focused more on the counties that have emergency communications departments also. And we found that we needed to increase the wages to our staff in this department. So this budget this year will reflect a $2 an hour increase for all of our hourly employees in that budget to get them to a competitive place with our neighboring counties, because we're losing people dramatically to other counties. And that coupled last year with some significant retirements of long-term employees in the emergency communications department leaves us needing to make sure that we get quality people in there and that we can retain them. And we think that this is really going to help with our retention issues in this department. And we're doing this pretty much planning to do this pretty much county-wide. So hopefully it helps with our retention issues in other departments also. So the other large increase in the staffing costs is health insurance. And I briefly spoke about some retirements that we had last year. And the retirements we had last year, most of those employees had single insurance. And most of our new people that we're hiring are younger and have families. So they're taking a family plan. So we did not show any increase in our health insurance line because we haven't got our information from our healthcare provider yet. But we wanted to be good stewards of money, so we budgeted this exactly as they're being paid out this year with the staffing that we have right now. So that, although it shows an increase, that's not projecting any increase in the cost that we will have in 2023 for these employees. And we're budgeting a 10% health insurance cost increase over all of our other budgets. So the other costs in there, FICA, capers, all those things, those all just come as partnership for paying more money to our employees. So those are the employee numbers that we have. I'll just touch on it briefly. We are in talks right now with Wellsville for Wellsville to pay a portion next year also. So I know that's been a question in the past. So we have determined an amount that we feel is fair, and Derek is currently discussing that with Wellsville, and they seem receptive to that, and we fully anticipate that they will be paying a portion next year also. But the biggest thing that we wanted to present to you guys today is with the uncertainty in staffing, and we know we have to budget what is responsible to cover our costs, but as we know, a lot of times that's usually higher than what we actually will spend. And so we want to be good partners. So we are offering to do a payback at the end of the year after we see what portion is not spent of the budget, that we would propose that we give you guys a rebate the following year for your portion of what is not used. So if we've done a 50-50 split in the past, so not considering what Wellsville is going to do yet, we would want to have the same partnership with Wellsville also. But if we're taking it as a 50-50 split, if there's $50,000 left in the bank at the end of the year, we would give you guys $25,000 back.
So I guess on that, it's not just the contractual services. So if Wellsville comes in like 10%, so it would be a 45, 45, and 10, I guess. Is that kind of how that split would be?
Yes. Yeah.
Ours would come down.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And I guess is it negotiated based on the population size, or still how that's working out?
Yeah. And we pulled the numbers, and it really looks like it's about 10%, both based on population and based on call volume too. They were a very, very close split. When we figured it both ways, so we could just kind of have those numbers and make an informed decision about where we wanted to go with that, and they were very close.
Okay, I appreciate you checking it out. That's good.
Janet, do you know where your turnover on employees has been the last couple of years, like percentage wise?
I don't.
Last year, we lost half of our people. Well, we lost four of our people last year. So we have 10 full-time dispatchers, and we lost 4 of them last year. 1 to retirement, the other 3 to moving on to other jobs.
Are you full staff now?
I am full staff now. I have 2 people who are in training. So technically that does make me full staff, and they go out on their own on August 21st.
So while we have all the positions filled, we're still kind of backfilling for the training situation.
And how many years did we hold the budget flat? Was it just one or two?
2020 and 2021.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, 21 and 22.
21 and
were the same.
22.
I mean, I say flat, I mean, we've been flat in, I think, in all of the like contractual services and commodities for the most part for the last number of years. It's salaries is what it always increases. And as part of our pay plan, we offer a merit and a COLA each year to stay current in the market.
I feel like it's almost like you almost read my notes here.
I can't even see it,
Almost
Sarah.
read my notes here. I am so glad that you brought up the budget versus actual dollar amount, because I went back and I took last year's and I noticed that the 2020 budget was budgeted at like $600 or $764,000, but the actual amount was like $662, which is $100,000 difference. And so I'm really glad that that decision has been made, because it does make me question when I ask, when a citizen says, like, well, where did that $102,000 go? Can't answer that. So I'm glad that we're gonna work on that to try and make that right.
Yeah, we really tried to give that consideration, and we've been talking about it for a couple of years, like how can we logistically make that right? And we're still kind of working out some details with that, you know, how do we offer a rebate in the next budget year? So that is going to be some considerations on our part, but we really wanted to do that for you guys so that, you know, that we're not getting that benefit. I mean, we need to budget appropriately, and we think the only fair way to make sure that we have enough in this budget and that we can cover if we are full staff for the whole year and all these people take the health insurance that we plan for them to take. I mean, these are the benefits that you guys know we have to offer to be relevant in a really tight labor market. So we just really want to be good partners.
Well, I don't know how the other commissioners feel around the table here, but I mean, if you're going to give, if there's going to be an increase in the budget, I certainly am glad it's towards salaries. It's not an easy job to do what a 911 dispatcher does, and we certainly don't pay them enough to do the work that they do. So if there's an increase, I'm happy to see that goes towards salaries.
I agree. The stress level and the hours that they have to work overnights and weekends, and that's definitely hard to employ people when you're asking them to do a stressful job and work all of these crazy hours
Traumatic
too.
stuff.
So
At one time, there was talk about some kind of regional 911. Has that ever been brought again, or is there any progress on that?
There is not any progress on
I
that.
didn't know if that was something that would be a good or not, or indifferent. I didn't know.
we had a brief discussion this morning about this, about just how different counties, even just our neighboring counties, dispatch differently than we do. And so, you know, and obviously if we're sharing with other counties, other neighboring cities, you know, if you wanted to take into account like Douglas County, it would put less focus on us. And, you know, we always say the best government is the government closest to the people. And so I think it gives us, the county and the city, the best shot to have the best services possible when we are the ones that directly get to make the decision, when we have the 911 board that gets to sit down and make the decisions about how things happen.
I've often thought, because I-35 runs through our county diagonally, there's more miles on that road than other counties around us, and so that's not the challenge for 911. Good for the tow truck drivers, but not so great for 911, because I'm sure you get a lot of calls on those kind of deals, and multiple calls per incident, so.
Yes.
With cell phones down there.
I'm glad you brought up the advisory committee. The advisory committee is still meeting?
Yes, we meet every month on the third Thursday of the month.
Okay, great.
Any other questions for us?
I don't believe so. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
That'll move us on to our continued discussion of the ordinance amending Article 17 of the zoning regulations on mixed-use districts. Hello, Director Hall.
Hello. So at the last study session, I went through a large number of slides. You'll be happy to know I'm not going to try to cover every slide this time, but I do want to hit on the highlights of that. So, okay, so the impetus for this request to amend the zoning regulations was the rezoning application for 2331 South Cedar. And we, following that one meeting where we determined that the district size needed to be 3 acres, we came back to the city commission and asked for your direction, and you provided us direction to look into this. So what's being proposed are minor amendments to the intent language of the ordinance, just to make it a little bit more reasonable in terms of what's required to qualify. And then this is probably the more important part of this. So the Planning Commission considered several alternatives for amending the minimum district size and settled on this one for the MURC, that's mixed use residential commercial zoning. A 1 acre minimum is required unless the parcel is adjacent to an I district or C district or P district. It does not apply, a minimum district size does not apply at all when adjacent to one of those districts. For the MUCI, which is mixed use commercial industrial, it would need to have 1 acres or more, and that's district size, not necessarily lot size. So if you have 2 lots that are being rezoned or they're going to be part of this zoning and they're adjoining one another, those 2 lots would constitute the district size, not just one lot. Okay, so this slide, go back to this slide here. Okay, so this is some of the areas of Ottawa that have the mixed-use zoning. As you can see, north end of Main Street, Main and Wilson, and then down at Main and Logan. This is another area at the other end of town, south end. A lot of vacant land that's zoned for mixed use. Go to the slide here. So this area on North Main could be a candidate for mixed use zoning just because there are older buildings. Some of them appear to be underutilized. There's a mix of uses in that area. Typical lot sizes in this area are 1/5 to 1/3 of an acre, and a 1/2 block. Typical size of size of a typical 1/2 block in this area is about 1.5 acres. Other parts of Ottawa, like closer to central Ottawa residential districts, the half block sizes are about 2 acres. There's an area that's closer to the center of town, and that area is largely residential. So you see the blocks that are a little larger. I think it's important to have an understanding of the lot sizes and the block sizes, because that's the context of potential rezoning in this minimum district size. So keep in mind that permitted and conditional uses in the mixed use residential district listed on the screen there. So any use that's in R2 or R3 or C1 or C2 is a permitted use. And then the same thing for conditional uses. So there are a few exceptions. Yes, sir.
So Mike, to summarize in my own layman terms, This came about because because when the project first started talking with planning, there was this size restriction in there, which nobody really understood, all right? And rezoning this project was not really appropriate. So you went the route of something we haven't really done before, called a text amendment, which makes those corrections in that text without having to go through a rezoning process, so that a project could move forward and not be in conflict with the zoning regulations. Is that right?
I'll clarify that a bit. So when this started out, the applicant didn't request mixed-use zoning. The applicant requested, I think it was R3 zoning. R3 zoning was problematic for a few different reasons. One, the density for R3, the restrictions didn't work for this location. It also could be considered spot zoning because it was surrounded by all this C3 zoning. So mixed-use zoning was a better fit. And so kind of started down that path, and it still is going through this rezoning process, and it still has to be rezoned in order for this to work, because currently it's mapped as C3, the 2331 South C. So what was discovered was, well, that's not going to work either, because the minimum district size is 3 acres. And so the best solution in this case is to amend the text of the code to provide a little more flexibility for zoning for mixed use. That 3 acre minimum is not really a magic number. We can't really pin it to anything, although I think there could be a concern that if there was no district minimum at all, this could be used inappropriately in residential districts because it's mixed use. And it could accommodate uses that are probably not appropriate in some of those areas. So that's the background. So the CI district, it really allows uses that are allowed in C3 and I1. And then the conditional uses in C3 and I1 are conditional, or would be conditional in this under this zoning as well. So it requires a conditional use permit. The list of permitted and conditional uses are in your packet. Just to give you an example, so uses permitted in C2 zoning. So C2 zoning is really a retail, commercial type zoning, retail sales and services. It doesn't allow bulkier type of retail or more intensive retail as with C3. And if you look at the mixed use commercial industrial district, it allows C3, but it also allows some I1 uses. So when you think about I1, light industrial, that's light manufacturing, that could be outdoor storage, could be self-storage, like mini storage, that type of thing. The other thing to keep in mind is that, next slide, the mixed use zoning does include design standards that don't generally apply to other zoning districts. There is no minimum district size for residential and commercial and industrial zoning. And any rezoning to either of these mixed use districts would require a rezoning process. So it would require analysis of the factors, it would require a public hearing by the planning commission, and would have to go before the city commission for a decision. And I think this is a good time, if you have any questions about what this means, the implications of it, this is a great time to bring that up, and I'll do my best to answer those questions.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I'm in favor of what the planning commission decided with going with the no minimum. They went the opposite way. They want a minimum size, 1 acre. I don't agree with the no minimum district size. I just think that opens Pandora's box in a sense, and could possibly allow something in a neighborhood that we really don't want. I mean, we've had this in our regulations for a long time, the 3 acres, and there certainly hasn't been that much of a concern up to this point. But everything needs to be looked at again and adjusted sometimes, and this is a great time to do this. I just think wiping the slate clean is not a good idea.
So, Mr. Mayor, just to be clear, so this, under certain circumstances, there's no minimum that applies.
Sure, sure.
Under that, number one,
Yep.
MURC, and if it's adjacent to one of those zoning districts. But in the other, all other cases of
It does.
minimum 1 acre would be required. And I have a slide here that shows the alternatives that were discussed. If there's some concern about that being too open door, open book.
Can we see it?
Sure. So 1 was originally proposed by staff. Second is an alternative that doesn't go quite as far. It doesn't go quite as far in terms of flexibility as does number 5. 5 is the one that was recommended by the Planning Commission.
Like I said again, number 5 was what the planning.
That is what the Planning Commission is recommending. That's not the actual text of the regulations, but it's kind of,
Is that what you're talking about,
a
Mayor?
little less legalese. And then 3 is 1 acre minimum in all circumstances, and then 4 is kind of make your choice. And I believe all of these would provide the option of approving a rezoning at 2331 South Cedar.
So were you involved in planning commission meetings?
Yes.
So what was their comments about why they were okay with the 1 acre in some, but not on the others? Like what changed their
5
mind?
versus 3,
What's that?
5 versus 3.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you look at mixed-use residential commercial, it doesn't open the door to potentially noxious uses like MUCI might. So it's treating that a little differently. My recommendation was to not have a minimum district size for MURC if it's adjacent to commercial or industrial. If you go back to this one slide, let's see if I can find it here. It's that one right there. So using this as an example, under the language that's proposed, this could be a candidate for mixed use RC. This is adjacent to I-1, but this lot is probably a third of an acre, fifth of an acre. So it would not be a candidate for MUCI under the proposed text. This would be a candidate because it's adjacent to this. The other thing to think about is the term adjacent. Potentially means this lot right here, it's adjacent. It might not be adjoining, it's adjacent. Could be a candidate. So that's the other alternative. You could substitute the word adjoining instead of adjacent without giving too many permutations, make it more complicated. But that was the kind of the analysis that went into this.
And how far away can adjacent be and still be called adjacent?
I don't think it's all that well defined, but I would say across the street right away or across an alley right away would still be adjacent. Okay. Even though it's not adjoining. And adjacent, if you look up in the dictionary, I think it says next to. Okay. So I don't know how helpful that is, but adjoining or budding. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
Anything else, Director Hall?
I don't have anything else unless you have any other questions. If there's other information you feel that you want.
Commissioners, how would you like to move forward on this item?
I mean, I personally am comfortable with the planning commission's verbiage in their decision on the 1 acre minimum and then not having the minimum on the other.
Option of frontage.
Yeah. And then their verbiage, that was,
Adjacent, not adjoining.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm fine with moving the request as per what has been brought to us to the agenda from the planning commission.
Mr. Griffin? Commissioner Skidmore?
I'm fine moving it on.
Okay, we'll move it on to our meeting coming up. That'll move us on to our continued discussion of ordinance for rezone request for property at 2331 South Cedar from C3 General Commercial to mixed-use residential commercial.
Okay, so this is a request for rezoning from C3 to MURC, that's mixed use residential commercial. The purpose of the rezoning is for the conversion of this existing motel to affordable workforce apartments. The recommendation is approval contingent on the minimum district size being amended. Summary, size and location, South Cedar, close to the interstate, close to the interchange, 2.1 acres. Current zoning is C3, properties all around it are zone C3. The surrounding land uses include low-intensity commercial such as hotels, retail, restaurants, gas stations, etc. Comprehensive plan goal, housing quality and diversity, quote, support development of affordable and appropriate housing for all segments of the community. As mentioned before, MURC was recommended as the best option. Alternative rezoning options to allow affordable multifamily housing. This location are not recommended because R3 is really a high-density residential district. C4, it would allow mixed use, but it's for the central business district for a different kind of character, and the urban fabric is a lot different. And then PUD, Pioneer Development Overlay District, that provides some flexibility, but that involves usually development of a master plan and a lot of, variation to standards. It's really not the best tool for this particular request. It's more complicated than necessary. The MURC district facilitates compatible mixed-use activity. The objectives of the MURC district include retention and attraction of businesses, workplaces, and residences through adaptive reuse and rehabilitation of existing buildings. Permitted uses, any uses permitted in the R2, R3, C1, or C2, and conditional uses, any uses conditional in those same districts. The rezoning is necessary because of changing needs and conditions. It's the best option. This particular zoning is the best option under the circumstances. Proposed zoning is compatible with uses of zoning surrounding properties, and it meets the goal of supporting development of affordable and appropriate housing for the community. I have 13 findings on these slides. If you got any questions about those, the Planning Commission adopted these findings in their motion. With that, I'll take any questions you have.
in the change process, is there anything in there that if they decide to not do the project once it's rezoned, and say what funding, whatever reason may come up in the future, they decide to not do it, do you see any concerns with that parcel sitting there being RC or mixed use RC in the future if this project doesn't get done?
Commissioner, that's one of the reasons for the MURC zoning versus the other options, because it can be used either or, used as a hotel, motel, or apartments.
That was gonna be my question too, because I think that's an important thing that, I always love it when people think outside the box and repurpose buildings like this for, something that, most of us aren't thinking about. But sometimes those don't work. And it's good to know that if it doesn't work, that they're able to put, maybe sell it off to another hotel chain or something and reopen it as a hotel, since we're not really changing the regulations that much. Commissioners, any other questions about this item for Director Hall?
Do you know how long it's been vacant or not in use? Does, I guess, anyone?
I don't believe it's vacant now.
Okay, is it still operating as
Still
a?
operating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The applicant hasn't purchased the property yet. He's in
Oh.
the process of making that happen.
Well, I certainly am in favor of moving it to our next meeting. I think this is a great use of this property and contingent on the rezoning, amending of the rezoning. I think it'd be a great use of it. So I'm in favor of moving it forward.
Yes.
That's what we'll do. Thank you, Director Hall.
Thank you.
That'll move us on to continued discussion of the base Building a Stronger Economy Grant Transfer Funds. Good afternoon.
Good
Director
afternoon.
Landis.
How are you all? This is, get to wrap this up for today. So we did talk about this last Monday, but this is just a recap of the base grant that we were awarded, the $5 million, and it's to fund 4 specific projects, 3 of them related to Proximity Park, being the elevated water storage tank, the water pump station, and the gas line through Kansas Gas Service, and then also a high-capacity lift station in the North Corridor, which would be funded partially through our wastewater utility. And part of the requirements under the base grant is that we do fund a 25% match of the total amount that we received. And one of our reporting requirements, which is coming up, is that we need to be able to show that that grant match has been made. And so they want to see that you have approved it and that that money has been transferred into a fund so that's eligible to be spent on the cost for these projects. The rest of the costs for those projects will come to you as we distribute those RFPs and get those bids back into us. We know that the total cost of those projects are going to be more than the $5 million that we received. We don't know exactly how much that will be, but we do have kind of a plan of action as far as where those funds will come from. The initial 25% though is $1,250,000 for our grant match, and we are proposing to move $150,000 from the wastewater utility, and then the remaining funds from the special sales tax fund for the Proximity Park sales tax, which would support those other 3 projects, and we will move it into its own loan fund, and we'll be able to report that back to the Department of Commerce to meet our obligation. Should you approve that transfer? Do you have questions about the projects or the grant match or the request?
Once again, we're not raising any taxes. We're actually taking this money from taxes that have already been collected from the Proximity Park Special Tax Fund and the fund that we already have for our wastewater. This
Yes,
isn't,
that
okay.
is absolutely correct, yes.
And the math to get to 1.25 million, 25%, how was that arrived? It's not part of the 8 million, 8 million.
It's of the $5 million that we received.
5 total, I got you.
Yes, so the initial requirement is that we need to show the match of the 25% of the 5 million. We know that it's gonna cost an upwards, probably closer to the 8 million in total.
Okay.
So we will have to make additional transfers, and really the recommended motion that you might consider at your next regular meeting would include, and the additional transfers that would be needed to include to complete those projects. But we won't know what that actual amount is till we get those bids back. And we are moving in the direction of getting the RFPs put together. There's some specific language that has to be included. The final design on all of those projects is underway. So we don't have those out yet, but we will, I would say, in fairly short order. And then once we've had that period of time for them to respond, we should be able to bring that back to you in the next couple of months. So you'll know what the total cost is. At any rate, the way that we have this calculated and broke down is that we will be able to cover all of those costs. proportionately from both the wastewater utility fund, which is what we're asking for here, and then in addition to cash that has already been collected from that special sales tax fund for Proximity Park, and then a contribution from Kansas Gas Service towards that service line project as well. And we're working with them on that, on what that exact amount will look like. So we do have a plan for the remainder, and we'll just, we can bring the final amount back to you when we know what that is.
Commissioners, any other questions for Director Landis on this?
You need movement on this as soon as possible, right?
Oh,
Preferably Wednesday.
Yes, if we could move it on to
Yes.
Wednesday and
Yes.
do that, that would be helpful.
We need to do that on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, we've reviewed it a couple times, and I think it's a great idea, and since it's already pretty much covered, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. Commissioners, you okay with moving on to Wednesday's meeting?
Yes.
That's what we'll do.
Thanks so
you.
much.
That moves us on to comments by the city manager.
So with respect to base, our engineers are finishing up the final details on the water tower, the pressure pump, and the lift station. And we may even have saved some money because we delayed on one of these for years. But they're finishing that up. Their next step is to have to get those plans, especially the sanitary sewer and water, up to KDHE for their review and final approval. And then we go from there, and we're working on those contracts. Kansas Gas Service is a different animal, but it is in a base grant. So it's just a unique, city attorney is working on the agreement with Kansas Gas Service, how that flows. We're also working with the state about how it flows, because it's not a normal vendor-city relationship. But the end product will be a gas line that goes to Kingman and Montana roads.
Any other comments? Comments by the city commissioners. Commissioner Graves,
I have no comment.
Commissioner Kaler,
Done at this time.
Commissioner Clayton.
I would just like to say, having Vibe come in today was really good. I'm sure everybody has. I know I've received a lot of messages about that and seen a lot of messages on Facebook and heard from people. And so at least if they're publicly kind of addressing those was really good. And a lot of work's being done up on the sidewalks at Keokuk and Maine, which is looking awesome. So.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Skidmore.
Just congratulations to our own Matt Simonson. He received 2 awards at the, what was it, the media banquet of some kind. So, our special agent, Matt, so good, congratulations to each other. I saw the paper today. That's great.
Thank you. Moves on to comments by the mayor. The Lost and Found Youth Organization is having an event this Saturday at the city park. Goes from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. They'll be having everything from car show, pet parade, food trucks, bounce houses, water slides, and yard games. And the reason I bring it up is because if anybody would like to, I think they're going to advertise that you can dunk the mayor too. So for 30 minutes, if you have any disgust with the way I've been running things.
Water for 30 minutes?
Maybe.
Is that right?
Maybe. I will be there from 11:30 to noon. So.
Wow, write this down.
All right. If it's just you 4 there, I really will be upset.
We can hire out the pitcher.
Okay, good.
Yeah, okay.
Other than that, we'll have an executive session this afternoon, so I'll move that we recess into executive session for the purpose of engaging in confidential communications with the governing body's attorney, specifically to receive legal advice, and that we reconvene in this room. Do we need 5 minutes before? Okay. So 4:50, we will reconvene in this room at 5:05 because we'll need 15 minutes. The city attorney, city manager, and finance director will be present. No action will be taken. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.